I know. So following them on. So on to the show tune spotlight. That was weird. But what I mean. No. Hi guys, and welcome back to Azaria's Place. I am very excited. I say it every week, but it stays the same. So today we're talking about a few tips that I use to find new rep. So if anyone who's watching this is not a theater person and you're watching it just because you love and support me, thank you so much. So if anyone's confused, rep is basically your repertoire. So different songs that you would go to and cycle through for auditions and things like that. Some people find rep just for audition purposes because sometimes there's a song that's overdone, which I'll talk about later in the video, that they want to stay away from in an audition room, but they want to use it for vocal training or for technique help. So this is basically geared toward finding more rep for like auditions and things like that, or just how you can find your rep in general for different voice types. I don't really like to categorize myself as any one voice type. I'm kind of that person that I feel like if you want to give it to me, I will sing it somehow and I will make it happen. So obviously with still being healthy, but I feel like I'm not just a soprano and I'm not really just an alto. So I try to look for rep for all different parts of my voice. So I have different tips and tricks that I use for a lot of different things. And so we're going to jump right in. I have some generic tips that I'll use all the time. So I don't really have numbers for these, but also just some tips for how to then go forward with the song as well. So we're going to dive in. So this one I feel like is a little obvious, and that's listening to less popular musicals. I'm one of those people that I love really random and not so popular musicals. So what I mean by that is we're not talking about your Wickeds or your Hamilton. We're talking about things like Zombie Prom and King Kong and Lysistrata Jones, those kind of shows. I love those shows because I think they're really fun hidden gems that are also really fun but also have really good songs as far as solo material, as well as fun cabaret numbers. So even if you're looking for things for cabarets to do with your friends, I think all of those shows have really great fun solo numbers, duets, and just really good fun. I will say finding sheet music for King Kong is the hardest thing ever. I actually emailed the composer, and actually I didn't email him. I think I emailed the composer's assistant, and I never heard from him again after he sent me an email back, but I looked for the music so hard. So that's neither here nor there. But that's, I think, the most obvious one is listen to things that are not everyone's favorite musical. I will admit, my favorite musical is Rent, and it's a very popular show, and there are a lot of people that do like it. There are also a lot of people who don't, but it's one of those shows that when you think a rock musical, you think Rent or American Idiot, things like that. That's one of the first ones that pops into my head, at least. So that, for me, is always a red flag to not automatically jumped to that song in an audition, because I'm one of those people that I don't like to go for the obvious choice in an audition, and yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things. So thinking outside of the box. So I think the most obvious one is looking for new musicals, because that will be your best friend. So honestly, if you're having trouble finding new musicals, I mean, you can also not limit yourself to just Broadway musicals. There are tons of different ways that you can find new shows. So that's either following different artists and seeing that they're going to do a revival of a certain production, or also going to websites like Broadway Musical Home, where you can find the entire list of Broadway musicals. But also, I believe, I can't remember where I went, but there's definitely a way you can find out the names of off-Broadway shows as well, so that way you can have a wider variety of professional songs that are in the style of musical theater that you can take into an audition. With that, I think the next obvious answer is to find musical theater composers. And that might be a little hard for some people, because if you're just getting into it, you may not know many composers. But what I mean by finding musical theater composers, it's not just your Stephen Sondheim or your George Gershwin. It's also people that just write in the style of musical theater for fun. For example, one of my favorite composers who does this is Jonathan Reed Galt. He's written songs like Quiet, which was made pretty well known by Natalie Wise, and other songs that are in the style of musical theater that you could probably take into an audition, but also sometimes have like a more pop-esque way to them as well. So I think that that's a really good person to look out for, because I think the biggest thing you want to do is find songs that you can also act. For instance, I went to a masterclass once and someone sang Edelweiss from Sound of Music. And the biggest piece of feedback that stuck out to me was not to sing that song, because it's really like a national anthem. And although you can sing and be patriotic, there's not really anyone in particular you're singing to. There's not really a whole circumstance you can create around that song, and it's pretty repetitive. So I think also another tip and trick is when you're finding songs, try to find something that showcases you in as little as possible. I know that can be very hard to find 16 bars or 32 bars that showcases every part of your voice that you want to showcase. Like I said, I don't find that I'm just one thing as far as voice type, so I find it very hard to feel like I can show everything sometimes. The other thing that I do actually feel like it's kind of funny to some people, is I will sometimes find a random new artist that I just heard about or that I love. So for instance, I love Megan Hilty. So if I just search Megan Hilty into YouTube, I'll see what kind of song she sings. So then what I recommend is finding an artist that you know that has a similar voice type to you, a similar range to you, that you think you might be able to sing things that they know a little well. Again, with that, you want to find out what songs are overdone, so you're not doing this song because it was a popular song that they learned for a TV show. For example, you probably don't want to sing Let Me Be Your Star in an audition, because it is probably a little overdone, although it is one of the best songs ever written. With that, find out what performers are doing today in cabaret settings and concert settings, because sometimes the material may be newer and more original and people just don't know about it yet, so it kind of can be your best friend. And also along with that, you can use them as a trail to finding other shows. Maybe give them a follow on Instagram and make sure you're keeping tabs on what they're doing, what people are doing in the industry. That way you know what's going on and like how musical theater has changed. And I know this may seem a little obvious, but also just go see shows. I know that it's not always as accessible, especially in a time right now, but if you can't, like I said, find a list of musicals, listen to that cast album, find new rep. But again, if you can't go see a show like in a time right now and you're listening to the cast album, still research the show. That will help you when you want to figure out what the context of the song is and things like that. So that's kind of the briefest way I can put it as far as finding new rep. Those are just little tips and tricks I've used. Something that I really love and people always compliment me about is my ability to find newer and not so overdone songs. And that's because I spend a lot of time looking for really, really out of the box and original stuff. I do use those main ones to try to find new music or at least new artists, so that way I can expand my vocabulary, expand my knowledge of theater in general, because I am a big theater nerd. So I think it's always just good to learn new shows, learn what's out there. So again, we all miss theater so much, so we want to be prepared for hopefully when it comes back, if you're going back to auditioning, if you're going to start auditioning once theater opens up. It's all going to be a big learning curve for all of us, but these are just some of the tips and tricks that I've used. Obviously not all of them, but I was really excited to share them with you because I definitely do this a lot when I'm definitely looking for newer things. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, if you want any recommendations for shows, things like that. I'm really excited. I love musical theater. I'm a big theater nerd. This thing behind me, actually, I painted it sometime in high school, and I love it a lot. So this is kind of my first video as like a theater resource, but yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. On to the Show Tune Spotlight. So once again, I try to keep these as in theme as possible. So today I decided to go with Unexpected Song from Song and Dance. The lyrics are not really about this video, but it's really nice to go into an audition and do something unexpected. So although the lyrics do not really have much to do with this, obviously the song title, for obvious reasons, does, just because it's all about finding that new rep and maybe even something a little unexpected to take into an audition. So Song and Dance actually opened originally in the West End in London in 1982, but moved to Broadway in 1985, starring Bernadette Peters, and its music and lyrics are by Andrew Lloyd Webber, Richard Maltby Jr., and Don Black. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said in the beginning, if you were just someone who loves me dearly and you're watching for love and support, thank you so much. Once again, I'm having a great time making these videos, so I'm glad that people are watching them and giving likes and comments. It really means so much. So that's all I have for you guys. Next week is a Disney week, so sorry that I didn't really dress in theme today, but next week. So thank you guys so much for watching once again, and be kind.